Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome back to Upside Down Books and to another book review because today we're going to be talking about Fourth Wing.
Non più tra I farfalloni amoroso, notte giorno.
I caved and I went and bought this to try it because, oh my goodness, the hype around this book is insane. If you don't know, Fourth Wing is a fantasy novel. I guess it's YA, I think it is YA, and it is so popular right now. It is doing the rounds on absolutely every platform that there is, and everyone is raving about it. It is a big, chunky fantasy novel. It's about dragons, it's action-packed, it's got a bit of romance in it, but it is super fun. Now, before I started reading this, I have to say I didn't know very much about the book itself, but I did know that lots of people were calling it spicy and just like well overhyped on various platforms, and it really frustrates me and still frustrates me that it's got this spicy trope going for it because I don't think it is a particularly spicy book, no more so than any other book that's out there with some sexy elements to it, shall we say. So I just want to start this by saying if you are reading this or going out here just for the romance, yes, there are some great romance scenes in this, but this is still very much so a plot like front-facing book, and the action and adventure and characters and everything else that goes on I think absolutely trumps the rest of all of the relationships and romance aside. That being said, I do think this lived up to the hype. I was so skeptical going into it. I wasn't sure what kind of romance or spicy crazy book I was going into, and I had really low expectations because I had got so cynical at that point, and I just wanted to know. I wanted to know what all the fuss was about because if you've been here for a while then you probably know that I really like and am drawn to dragon fantasy novels. I've actually not read that many, but I do collect them, probably in true dragon hoarding style. And so I wanted to get in on this one because I thought that this actually sounded really up my alley despite all of the crazy hype around it, and I'm really glad that I did, and I'm also really glad that I went in with great skepticism because I think I enjoyed it all the more for taking down the hype just a notch. So as I said, this is a fantasy novel. It's almost more in the epic realm than it is in the high fantasy area. The difference being one having more of like a castles and character and sword fighting front, and the other one being a lot about magic. It's somewhere in between the two. Of course there are dragons and there is magic that is involved, but I feel like it's more strongly vibes with the epic fantasy category. We follow a teenage girl in this story who I think she can almost stand up for some disability rep. She's quite a fragile person, but it's never really labelled what's going on with her, but there is that element a part of the book. And the main character, Violet, does not want to be a part of this academy for training to become a dragon rider, but because of various circumstances she finds herself thrust into the danger zone, which is trying to survive the academy. Now, trying to survive this academy is like the main crux of this story. It is a death sentence, it is absolutely hectic, and the death rate of the cadets that go into trial to hopefully get through the graduation, like the death rate is huge, and lots of people don't expect to come out alive at the other end. This certainly strongly reminded me of Naomi Novik's recent fantasy series, which is A Deadly Education, so if you've read and loved that, then you will absolutely love this because it's that, but with dragons. I found this to be very pacey. The more I read of it, the more addicted I became. I did think that if I was going to really get critical about this book, then I think the character development was a little bit superficial, and you kind of dive into a story with pre-made characters, if you will. But this book was written by the author to be an entry-level fantasy novel for new readers perhaps who have come across from all of the TikTok phenomenons and have been enjoying the romance-driven books, and she's sort of enticing them over, encouraging them with a little bit of romance in this book into the fantasy genre. It's something that's quite easy, there's not a lot of world building going on, it's very approachable and very digestible, and for that purpose of what she's written it for, I think it nailed the brief. Rebecca Yarros has done an amazing job in writing such an easy to read or easy to approach fantasy novel, and so if you are new to the genre or you just like fantasy that doesn't require so much effort to process and understand, then this is absolutely the book for you. This ended up being a 5-star read for me, no questions asked. It really shocked me how much I loved this. I couldn't get enough of it. It was all I wanted to read. It was all I was doing whilst I was reading it. The addiction and obsession with it just sort of grew exponentially the further I got. It's a wonderfully thick book, so you get to be with these characters for nearly 500 pages. And the sequel is coming out really soon, so we don't even have to wait that long. I gave this 5 stars because I just couldn't think of any reason why I wouldn't. It's done what the author wanted it to do. It was immensely entertaining. I loved it. It's one of my favourite reads I've read, and so I do think that it lives up to the hype. And I think that it deserves all of the attention and excitement that it's getting. I just wish it wasn't being called a spicy book, because as I said, there are steamy romance scenes, but people need to expand recommend their reading horizons because this is just the beginning of how steamy and spicy books can get. The kind of tropes that you're going to see in here is a reluctant hero who has been thrown into the midst of things. You're going to see enemies to lovers, or friends to enemies, all of those lovely complex dynamics. You're going to see great strong sibling relationships, and you're going to see lots of strong friendships, lots of female-female friendships, or one in particular in any case that is just always lovely to see, like written on the page so beautifully. You've got some distant parents from the children trying to live up to impossible expectations, and of course you've got the upper-ups who are making all of the calls and decisions about the war that is sort of the background context of this story, who are definitely keeping secrets, and you will be mega sus of them the whole way through. There just feels like there is so much more to explore, and I cannot wait to go on the journey with this author through the rest of this series. I've been told that there's going to be quite a few, so I hope that there are many to come. It's certainly setting you up for an easy introduction into the world, getting you used to all of the characters and everything that's going on. Really fun animals. The dragons are so much fun and really hilarious, but I don't want to talk too much about them because I think you're best to just go in blind and learn about them as you read. But because there is that context of a war happening in the background, there's so much room for expansion, and I could certainly see this becoming bigger and better and the next big thing. I mean, it already is basically. So that really sums up all of my thoughts on Fourth Wing. I think it's worth it. I think you should read it, and I don't think you should be afraid of hype because it's going to be a good time, I can promise you that. So let me know in the comments down below if you've read this or if you're planning to, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.
Alla gloria militar